Hello, Johners.
There's someone waiting in the waiting room. Should I admit
Oh,
that?
good. Yeah, yeah. Let them in. Let them in. Let them in.
So
Johnny, I've got a surprise.
Who have you invited to the meeting?
Da, 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 da. So John doesn't know who this is. Is he there?
Yes, I'm there.
There he is.
Steve.
John Hastings of Canada. On the call today, we have Steve Shaw-Wright, Councillor Steve Shaw-Wright, who is the definitely one time, possibly two, three, four, or five times mayor of Selby in the UK. Is that right?
3 times, yeah.
3 times mayor of Selby, UK. Councillor Steve Shaw-Wright is on the call with us today, John. Are you excited?
I'm very excited. Councillor Steve, you're a sight for sore eyes. Nice to see you. What is going on? It's getting dark.
Bats will be coming out.
What? Why do you have bats?
Everyone has bats.
Fly around on a night time.
There's no bats in the United Kingdom, Steve.
Absolutely. We've got bats, rats, voles, cats, dogs, and what you care to mention, really.
So the reason I thought it'd be fun to talk to Steve, John, is to tell him how we got on at the council meeting in Selby, Ontario, Canada.
It was amazing. I feel like we somehow arrived late on Zoom. I assume that's a bat. I feel like we arrived late, but we then were deputized by the council. Tim, is that correct?
That is the word they used. We made a deputation to the meeting. We weren't deputized. It wasn't like a Wild West sheriff situation. Yeah. No, it was we had to fill in a form, Stephen. We had to make a deputation to the council to tell them all about the Two Selbys project, which was very exciting, and they seemed to enjoy it.
They did. I was expecting it was going to be a long, confused process filled with dead eyes, and they literally sort of greeted us with joy and pizzazz. You talked about chickens with a farmer.
I did.
Well, we would greet you with open arms as well. I mean, I've spoken to a few people about it, and I know the local rugby club is looking for a match in Canada that they can bring some young boys and girls across to play. So I think there's a desire, shall we say, to make things work. And obviously, Tim's got a fantastic reputation in Selby, long-term reputation in Selby. So I think anything that happens will be positive, and I'm sure we can make a lot of things happen. We could import some Canadian beer for our beer festival.
Maybe we could send Pittence's Porter over to Canada.
Yes.
I should tell John this. I've not told him. There is a beer that has me on the label in Selby.
And we aren't sending this to Canada post haste as a way to prime the pump?
We should be doing that. Yes, that is true.
Yeah, I'll sort something out if we can still find the original cartoon.
Yeah.
So we arrived for our what were we doing? We were deputizing them.
No, we were making a deputation
to them.
To them, yeah.
So they're our deputies, and we're the sheriffs.
No, it's a different use of the word.
I disagree. Either way.
Either way, what we would do, we would invite you to make a presentation to the town council, which is the same thing, start things going.
Yeah. One of the things that was exciting, Steve, is that the mayor of Greater Napanee, which is Greater Napanee is it would be like the Abbey being its own town and Selby being the council of the Abbey and Selby. So the mayor of Greater Napanee, of which Selby is a part, was very keen to try and get some inter-council dialogue going. And I thought you might be up for that. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, definitely. I say everybody I've spoken to has been really interested in, oh, yes, that sounds fun.
And we found the councillor who is the specific councillor for Selby, and we really liked him, didn't we? Councillor Dave Pinnell Jr., as he's called.
Yeah, he showed up with a disco afro, which I thought was a wig for some sort of prank, and it was just his hair.
We should explain that he apparently hasn't been able to go to the hairdressers because of COVID, and he has a type of hair that just like goes out. Yeah. He's really bouncy hair. And so
I can understand that, because when mine gets long, I turn into Brian May. And he just goes all
that's it. That's what he looks like.
Yeah.
That's what he looks like. Yeah. He looks
like
Brian May.
That, but up to a few weeks ago, I had my beard sort of down to there. So,
yeah. I saw that. I saw a picture of that.
Yeah. Jennifer didn't like it, so
it was pretty ZZ Top. That it was quite cool.
I was going for ZZ Top.
You got it. You nailed that. You nailed it.
Yeah.
So you must tell John a bit about Selby UK Yorkshire, because I've been trying and I've probably got a lot of things wrong. But John's very enthusiastic about Selby and the two Selbys.
Yeah. I'm very interested about the sort of the history of Selby and stuff like that, because it was founded by a monk who was looking for swans. Is that correct?
Something like that, yeah. I mean, we've got Viking heritage. There was a dig on what's called Church Hill, and Tim will laugh because Selby's flat as a pancake, and Church Hill is about 2 foot higher than anywhere else. And they came across some Viking remains of longboats or little canoes or something, and just chucked them in the Ouse and got rid of them. The Abbey is the most prominent building in the district. It's 952 years old. It was founded by was it Benedict, who came up. He was actually lost, apparently. He was looking for somewhere else, but he ended up the Ouse and came to Selby, found 3 swans. That will do. Father, Son, Holy Ghost. So everything in Selby is now the Selby Centre, the Signet Centre, the Swans, or whatever. You get 6 deaths of the Swans. It has one of the first canals that was built early on. It went from Leeds to Selby and then on to the River Ouse and down to Hull and beyond. It then got usurped by the Leeds-Liverpool Canal, so people stopped using the Selby one. We had the first railway station in Yorkshire, and then they moved it to York, and ours became a dead end. We have a toll bridge that has to be made out of wood and still turns to let the ships go by.
Why does it have to be made out of wood?
Because it says so in the charter from 1600, and nobody can be bothered changing it. We have a railway bridge across the Ouse, which again twists to 90 degrees to let the boats come through. And we have a London bridge. No, that's made out of metal.
Good.
We used to be shipbuilding. Cochrane shipbuilders built hundreds of boats, including the Rainbow Warrior that Greenpeace used.
Oh.
That was built in Selby. And
somebody mentioned that.
It's somewhere in South America now. I think it's been scrapped. Keeping it nautical. During the war, there was a warships week where towns and communities put money in and bought various bits of kit. Leeds managed to get enough money for a aircraft carrier. Selby managed to get enough money for a submarine called HMS Sturgeon. Never fired in anger, although it almost sank a ship of our own navy. After the war was, and you can find the launching of it on the British Film Institute films you this film. After the war ended, it was sold to Denmark and finally went out of commission in the 1950s, 1960s. Shipyards shut down. We've got ICI Chemical Works that used to produce all sorts of nasties. We now have a big citric acid place. We used to have a bacon factory. It's gone. We used to have an oil and cake mill that used to stink to high heaven, and that's gone. The mines came in the 1970s, and we were producing millions of tons of coal without much effort. We had an interesting period in 84, 85 where we all went on strike for a year.
Did you work in the mines, Steve?
Yeah, I worked at Rickle. I used to work at Newmarket, which is over in Wakefield, Dex County. Kellingley, which was the last deep mine in Selby, that's now going to be a new shopping centre and what have you.
Wow.
What else we got? We did have 3 major power stations. 2 of them have gone, and we're now left with tracks. The river's still navigable, and occasionally you get ships coming up. We tend to flood a lot. This town council has been going since about 1894. And we've got.
Steve, what made you join the town council? What made you say you wanted to get involved into the local politics of your commune?
The town council can do an awful lot. I mean, there won't be a town hall. There wouldn't be the fun day. There won't be the bonfire. There won't be the beer festival. We had a funeral festival.
You had a what?
Funeral festival.
Explain to me what a funeral festival is, please.
Have you been to a bridal event? You know, where brides can come and look at the dresses and the what have you. Same for a funeral. We do an awful lot. And when we were moving pits, they would bring you across on a bus for a bus trip. And you would go to the pits and be told you got a job for life. And your wives, girlfriends, whatever, will be taken round the villages. You can live in this village and you can live in that village. But put your clocks back 20 years. Because Selby was really, he's always been up the end of something. When it was West Riding, it was right on the very end of West Riding. Then it was moved into North Yorkshire to pay the business rate, realistically. Selby was generating 75% of the income for the rest of North Yorkshire because North Yorkshire has sheep rather than anything else. But we're sort of the gritty end of North Yorkshire. And if you look at a map of North Yorkshire, there's like the big thing across the top, and then there's like a little scrotum dangling. And that's us.
Scrotums, yes.
That's us. I've been the town councillor, district councillor, and county councillor. So Selby's got history, it's got canals. The river used to divide the district into, say, West Riding one side, East Riding on the other. We've got shafted over time. So we had the canal, then it got used. We had a railway, it got moved. Power stations are going to bring jobs. They moved people up from London. Pits were going to bring jobs, and they just moved people across from West Riding. So it's a very accepting place. They just sort of go, oh, well, you know. Selbys my home. I used to live in Wakefield. I mean, when I first came, it was really weird. You'd walk into the shop in Selby and open your mouth, and your accent is so different from the local. People would just, going back to your sheriff days, the piano player would stop and all the bar people would put the thing down and then look at you. And we used to laugh because we knew that people were coming from Barnsley and they were a lot worse than we are. It's all Yorkshire.
Yeah, I was going to say, has the Yorkshire Bats and the Yorkshire Rats and the Yorkshire Cats and the Yorkshire... What is your favorite portion of the town? Is it the canals? Is it the Abbey? Is it something you haven't mentioned?
The Abbey will be the place that I like to use as much as possible for concerts and things. I do think people need to get in there. And there's always this... I'm always fascinated that we were watching the funeral, the Duke of Edinburgh, just to see how things worked. And we think, that within that building, there is an oriel window that Henry VIII had made. So one of his wives could look down on what was going on. And you've got people who sort of walk past the Abbey that's been there for nearly 1,000 years. And kings have been in there and so much history in its walls, and people just ignore it. But it's a fantastic building, and quite a few of the vicars have said if they took the roof off, they'd get more visitors because they go visiting ruined abbeys, but they don't come to the one that's actually operating. But it's a fantastic building.
That's a fascinating point. You make a great point, because I've been to the Abbey in Coventry that got bombed, and I've been to no other Abbey.
Well, it's one of the few that's...
I like churches. I find them incredibly soothing. I love the history.
It's one of the few that survived sort of Henry VIII's rant, shall we say?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice little place.
It's got something we've not ever mentioned before on this on the Tale of Two Selbys. Is the lepers squint in Selby Abbey? I've never told John about that.
I don't
know. Do tell him.
It's a way that people could look in and see the services without being inside the abbey, so that they could take part but still be separate because of the leprosy.
Obviously, normally they get shunted off to leper colonies, whereas in Selby they still wanted them to come to the abbey, and so they created this special window which goes through a wall, which is it's got to be 6-8 feet thick.
Yeah,
it's a big thick wall, and they put this window through this 8-foot wall, 8 foot 2.5 meter wall, so that the people with leprosy could go into the abbey through a side door, and they could still watch the service, even though they had leprosy, without infecting everybody else, which is quite a nice thing to to do in some ways. I think it's as you say, it's quite accepting, isn't it? It's quite welcoming.
Yeah, I was going to say that's, and especially for those times with leprosy, that's a level of wokeness you don't expect from the Middle Ages.
Yeah, we've also got within the abbey. There's a music box called a carillon, and it plays various tunes, and it's one of only 2 or 3 in the country, I think. So, and the town
there's
council pays for the clock winding and the thing.
So it's
and there's the sack butt as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Is it a sack butt? Is that the right word?
I think it's a sack butt. Yeah.
I think it is a sack butt. I should also say to John that Steve is on the district council and the town council. So at some points it does get a bit. It gets kind of confusing for Steve because he disagrees with himself. As a district councillor, the district council says one thing, and then as a town councillor, he says another. They say another thing. It's very complicated.
We had what I billed as the first indoor-outdoor pop concert. So we hired the leisure centre. Not many people turned up, but none of the people who knocked it turned up. So by the time I finished telling everybody how fantastic it was and there wasn't any trouble, we then could have an outdoor one the following year. The police turned up thinking it was some sort of riot with stab vests and whatever. And I paid the photographer to go around taking photographs of little girls feeding police dogs ice cream. So that works. And we started the bonfire through the pit. And when the pits were closing, we moved it into town. And now that is a firm favourite with people.
When you say bonfire, is that associated with bonfire night, or you just set fires at a certain point?
Oh, I'll just set fire to anything. We're one of the few councils that still do a bonfire display. We use, and I'll bore you to death.
Hang on, Steve. What about me makes you think that firework talk is going to bore me? This is what I've been waiting for the whole time, and then you're
right. Well, you get these fantastic fireworks, and they're wrapped in brown paper. And the bishop has been to set them off. We had a guy from Radio York, Jeremy, somebody or other, who he lives in the next village, and he came and did a live broadcast of lighting the first firework, and then he was taken off air because he swore. When 16 shells go 600 foot up, and they're very noisy, and they go big thump and they hit you in the chest. But we get about 5,000 people come, and it is a really good night. And we have, again, roundabouts and everything you would associate with it. And there's 2 or 3 people sort it all out, set them all off, and we do it because we like doing it. And it's free to enter, and it's a lot safer. The police and fire service prefer us to have it because they know where everybody's going to be. Because the fireworks we get, put anything you can buy from a store, just you might as well not bother.
Something that's always bewildered me about bonfire night, as someone who lived in England for 7 years but was from Canada, is that there's no warning about what is about to happen on that first bonfire night. I just thought London was under attack because no one tells you, and B, no one reacts. That's the other thing that's fascinating about it, is everyone goes about their day while like if that was happening in Selby, Ontario, they distribute pamphlets. Like you're firing off bombs with DJs.
Well, if you want to come across and set some off with us, you're quite welcome.
Steve, I want that very badly. I want that very badly.
Provide you with all the kit, and we have the special helmets and everything.
Oh, is there a way that I could shoot flaming arrows at the fireworks to set them off? Is that
what
possible?
You can do? You'll regret this. What you can do, you can set what's known as a flying pigeon, which is basically a rocket on a catenary wire that will go into the centre of the bonfire to light it, wrap it in tightly with a few bits of nails, and it's a bomb. But
now, Steve, I'm being told that we've only got 9 minutes left. This has never happened before. What I'd love to say is, if we can track down the mayor or maybe Councillor Dave, shall we organise a Zoom chat with you and him on a Zoom chat? Also, it would be great to organise me and John coming and talking to Selby UK Council, and we'd love to do that whenever they want.
Steve, I have just 2 questions for you. What would you say is the number one thing you want to ask of the Canadian Selby Town Council?
Well, the obvious one is, are you named after Selby in Yorkshire? And it's, what would they get out of being twinned with us? You know, I would. I'm quite an internationalist.
That sounds like a really good plan to aim for.
It is about getting not just ourselves, but if we could get the schools, the colleges involved with just connections across. I mean, Selby College do send kids who do a tourism thing. They usually go to America for a weekend and see what they do. So perhaps they could come to Canada. I know the rugby club would love to come and play, and I'm quite sure other sporty people would as well.
We can arrange a Selby v Selby hockey game. Imagine that.
Love it. Well, Steve, I think we should say a huge thank you for coming on this.
No, it's all right. No worries.
This chat, and also I'm not going to tell John the other surprises that you've been helping me to try and move forward and set up.
And this is the surprise.
Thank you for that. Thank you hugely for that. And as I say, let us know when we can come and talk to the town council, because we'd love to do that. Send them my huge love.
Do you want it quick or slow? Because we've got a meeting in April, but then we've got annual meeting in May.
Whatever you think's going to work in terms of what they're discussing. You just let us know.
I'll have a word with Chris and Fred and see if we might do a special meeting and just let people come along and see what they fancy, and then we can look to other people coming and see what's going on.
Brilliant.
I know there's a head teacher of a school outside of the town, but they live in Wistow, which is just topside of Selby, but they're very involved in the rugby club, and they were keen that they if there was anything going, they wanted to be involved.
Okay, well that's great.
It's all going to be positive.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be lovely if we get the links right and we can prove that Selby in Canada is linked to Selby in Yorkshire, which I think John and I are gently circling round. We've got the Historical Society and the Archive in Selby currently digging out documents, even though there's COVID going on out there. They're being brilliant. And if we can get those links, and if we can link up the schools, I think twinning would be just a great way. That would be a lovely outcome for the whole thing.
Really imagine that. Imagine the statue they'd have to build of us, Tim.
Out of Lego, man.
When you go into the Abbey, there are 2 plinths waiting for statues to go.
See?
There are.
Steve knows. Why how was your 2021? I'm a statue in an abbey. That's how it is.
Hey, you could zoom into. We're having a mining memorial built as well in a park to celebrate commemorate the mines and the people who lost their lives therein. Quite nasty ones, but there you go.
Well, John Hastings, this has been Councillor Steve Shawright, the 3 times Mayor of Selby in the UK. That is Steve, just
final
lovely.
Question. Will you be running for a 4th term as Mayor of Selby at some point in the future?
I will if required, but I quite like sitting back and letting people do stuff.
Well, John, we'll say goodbye to Steve, and we'll see him again. I'm sure we'll see him again.
Thanks for having me on.
It's lovely. It's lovely. Yeah. Take care.
You take care, Tim.
Speak to you soon.
No worries. Bye. Bye now. Bye.
Bye.
My God.
That was Councillor Steve Shawright on A Tale of Two Selbys. John Hastings, were you excited?
I was more than excited. I was bewildered and confused at the beginning, and I love that we now have a base of sort of information more about Selby. And basically, it's 2 working class towns and I loved what he sort of said is it's a Selby, the UK comes at the end of things. It's off the beaten track. It's moved. Selby, Ontario, same thing. It's an amazing thing. And now the new goal has been established. Statues of you and I in the Selby Abbey in Selby, Yorkshire. I don't know how we're going to accomplish it. I don't know how we're going to convince the council that that's a good idea, but I would like that to take place.
I think just keep saying it, John. Keep saying it.
I will keep saying it.
And it was nice to hear my Viking thoughts were proved fairly,
It's amazing. I'm loving these surprises, quite frankly, because I was absolutely unsure who, what, where, why, what. And then this bearded man appeared and gave us a bunch of amazing information.
He's quite modest, but he is largely responsible for the fact that Selby Town Hall didn't basically disappear. You know, that it still has a thriving venue in Selby Town in the UK. Because really, without Steve and the love that he has for the place, that wouldn't be there. So it was really nice.
It was also nice. It's getting a perspective. I'm going to leave. We're going to run out of time, but I was explaining what.
We must. Yeah.
To a friend of mine, and she said something, and I almost cried. Which is, she said, "You're taking places that are usually forgotten or ignored by artistic or creative projects, and you're giving them importance to each other in a time when we all feel alone." And I went, "Well, where were you when we were filling out grant applications?"
And to the world, giving them importance to the world that they rightly deserve.
It's wonderful stuff.
Join us next time on A Tale of Two Selbys.